What you've all been waiting for. My editor's choice TV for 2023 has been selected, and it is... Stop the FOMO. Do you have a fear of missing out on my editor's choice TV for 2023? Let's not hold the suspense any longer. It is the 77-inch Samsung S90C. What? I have the 77-inch S95C. Why is that not my editor's choice, given that the S95C is my reference TV so far? Today, we're going to get into how did it win? What was the competition like? Why did I choose the 77-inch S90C when I have the 77-inch S95C as my reference TV? What happened? But first, let me introduce today's sponsor, Whokeys. Yep, you just finished your big old PC Windows build, you have the best of the best, and sadly, you have less than $20 to your name. Whokeys to the rescue. Use my code SF20 and immediate discount. Let's quickly go through the activation process after you've purchased Windows 10 on Whokeys. Go to your Whokeys account and select My Purchased Orders. See your order. To the far right, click on the button that says View Keys Codes to see the Windows CD code. At the bottom of this order where it says Code Card, to the right is the product key you need to activate Windows. So copy this long number, then go to the Windows menu and click on Settings. In the Settings menu at the bottom, select Update and Security. Select Activation, then select Change Product Key, paste what you copied from Whokeys, click Next, click Activate, and you're done. You can download the Windows 10 Pro key and you're up and running. But that's not all, folks. Whokeys has keys for games too. Steam, Origin, Uplay, you name it, you got it. Check out their sites. There are discounts for all sorts of stuff. And most importantly, you want to be productive? What about Office Suite? Yep, you can download a copy of Office Professional with my code SF20 at checkout, and bam. Now, as much as I love the Samsung S95C, which is currently my reference TV, and I'm also very impressed by the LG G3, currently the brightest sports watching TV I have in the studio, neither of them won. It is the 77-inch Samsung S90C. That is my editor's choice. Now, if you notice, I was very specific about the size. The 77-inch, not the 55, not the 65, not all three sizes, but specifically the 77-inch size. Because I know for a fact that the 77-inch S90C, that size, shares the same latest second generation panel as the 77-inch S95C. But the same cannot be said of the 55-inch and the 65-inch, which appears to be definitely a mix of the first generation panel and possibly the second generation. We really don't know. But I do know for sure that the 77-inch S90C is 100% the second generation QD OLED panel that Chirag, our guest from Samsung Display, has explained what improvements were to be expected. Basically a little bit brighter, a little bit more efficient, and definitely 2 times more durable. These things are all important, and it shows because when comparing with the S95C, 77 inches versus 77 inches, indistinguishable. More often than not, if I saw any differences, it was so minor that if I had not had them side by side, I would not have noticed the difference. And sometimes the S90C was slightly brighter. Sometimes the S95C is a touch brighter, but they were so close that I would have to say, you know what? Get the S90C 77 inches if you're considering the 77-inch S95C. And ultimately, I believe that the real difference between the two in terms of pricing, about $1,000 apart, 77-inch S95C is for those who want the One Connect box. And if you don't care for the One Connect box, then the S90C is for you because image quality, identical. Now, let's get into this review. The 3 reasons why the Samsung 77-inch S90C is my editor's choice TV for 2023. But before we get into the 3 reasons why the 77-inch S90C is the winner, how about the contenders that made it to the podium, but not quite the win? First, 3 TVs from TCL and Hisense definitely were close. The QM8, the Q7, and the U8K. All 3 admirable performance, especially when price is taken into consideration. And the Q7 really came close because I was so impressed by what it was able to do on a budget. So these 3 LCD TVs came very close. And A fourth LCD TV that really impressed me was the Sony X90L with limited number of dimming zones. I thought its image quality was superb, but I could not give them the win because these four are LCD TVs and they all share the same weaknesses that I just couldn't get over. One is your viewing angle. You have to be directly in front of them. The minute you go off more than 45 degrees, you're going to see that shift in color and contrast. And ultimately, the ones with the most dimming zones and mini LED backlight panel, they had a bit of that crushing that people complain of, right? The stars, if they were a little bit too dim, they disappeared. Only the brightest stars are shown in certain scenes. And more importantly, well, they're LCD TVs. That means innately you're going to have some blooming. And so with LCD TVs, there's always that trade-off. If you want to completely eliminate blooming, you have some black crushing, or like the Sony X90L, you want all the stars to be there, but then you have slightly lifted blacks, not perfect blacks. And obviously, if you maxed out your budget, you could also consider the LG G3 and the S95C. Now, the G3 definitely could not win because it has certain weaknesses in bright color luminances, just not saturated enough for me. And although it's super bright for sports, in movie content, I just saw issues with the image processing. So Monster Hunter, for example, the G3 just could not process that image as well as the S90C. And the Sony A95L, which everyone expects to be the best TV of 2023, not here yet. I'm sorry. So whenever it comes, I'm going to have to reassess. But as far as I'm concerned, that's going to have to be looked at as a 2024 TV, right? Obviously, if you maxed out your budget to the most expensive flagship available, that's the Samsung S95C and the LG G3, guess what? The S95C and the S90C, really, to me, it's a tie. But given the price, that takes us to reason number one. Why the 77-inch S90C is my editor's choice. Price for over $1,000 less. Currently, it's under $2,500 for the 77-inch size. The LG C3 is closer to $3,000. The fact that Samsung is pushing the prices down and discounting the S90C so aggressively, this price to performance ratio, wow. And speaking of performance, that takes us to reason number two. The performance is outstanding. We are talking, again, S95C level performance. Out of the box, I thought it looked great. Remember, my 77-inch S95C was calibrated. And when I compared it to the out-of-the-box uncalibrated 77-inch S90C, they were so close, I'm like, wait, this is impressive out of the box. And so image quality, image processing, all the things that I need in a good TV are all there. Now, there is some discussion as to whether it does low bitrate content well. And I've noticed that on YouTube TV in low bitrate, it doesn't process the edges as well as the Sony X90L, but what TV does. However, this TV I use most of the time, actually all the time, with high quality sources, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Disc, whether it's Kaleidoscape. I feed it the best sources I have available. I only watch YouTube TV when watching sports, NFL, college football, whatnot, but all other content, high quality, the S90C hits it out of the ballpark. And speaking of image quality, what about gaming image quality? Again, very impressive. Looks just like the S95C. SDR gaming looks bright, super bright. HDR gaming looks great. I think the S90C is the ultimate value gaming OLED TV. And for true PC gamers who want to hit that 144 Hz, the S90C, unlike the S95C, can safely hit 48 gigabit bandwidth, whereas the S95C, because of the One Connect box, it's limited to 40. And limiting it to 40, some complain that 444 with 4K 120 may or may not pass properly at 40 gigabits per second, whereas the S90C has the full 48 gigabits per second. So if you are a PC gamer, the S90C, definitely no concerns there. What about sports? Can it get bright enough? It definitely can. Bright sports in a bright room. The S90C, no complaints. It gets as bright as the S95C. Well, if you take out the meter, you might argue the S95C is a touch brighter, but really, if they were not side by side, I would not be able to make the call. The G3, however, is brighter. Not only is it brighter than the S90C in sports mode, it's brighter than all of my mini LED TVs. Now, beyond image quality, let's talk about the panel itself, which takes us to reason number 3. Specifically, the QD OLED panel used on the 77-inch S90C as well as the 65 and 55-inch. This applies to all sizes. Uniformity, phenomenal. No color tinting, none of that pink or magenta tint. These two issues continue to affect the LG C3 and G3. Vertical banding could be really bad or it could be light but noticeable, and definitely there's always going to be that magenta tint around the edges on the G3, whereas on the S90C, whether it's 77, 65, or 55, clean as can be. Of course, occasionally an S90C owner may lose the lottery. Hey, I thought FOMO said this is, if it's bad, swap it if you're in the return period. But more often than not, the S90C will have a cleaner panel as far as uniformity is concerned than its WOLED counterpart. However, no TV is perfect. So one reason to consider an alternative TV is image processing, namely the Sony A80L. I would consider the Sony A80L over the S90C for image processing. Specifically, your source is very sketchy, whether it's a cable box, whether it's bad internet, whether it's YouTube TV. The Sony A80L, its image processing cleans everything up better than any other TV this year. And I give credit to the XR Clear feature of Sony's 2023 OLED TVs, right? And along those lines, this also applies to motion settings. The A80L has the most comprehensive set of motion settings where you will more likely than not find that perfect motion for you. Whereas with the Samsung S90C, at some point, you're going to have to say, I sense a little bit of soap opera, and you have to be okay with that. Because for me, at a level anti-jutter reduction of 3, I'm good. However, others may notice soap opera at 3, but I cannot stand having that any lower than 3 because now I notice the stutter. On the Sony, there is a setting where it minimizes both the stutter and it minimizes both the soap opera, which makes it uniquely Sony. So if you're sensitive to motion or you need the best-in-class processing of questionable sources or low bitrate content, then the Sony A80L should fit the bill for you. But what about upgrading to the Samsung S95C? Is there a reason to upgrade? Now, I've had both TVs, currently the 77-inch S95C and the 77-inch S90C. This one was in for review. This one is mine. But had I known the S90C 77-inch performed as well as it did, I probably would have chosen the S90C instead. As convenient as the One Connect box is, it's no big deal to me, right? And lastly, one other weakness, and this is shared among all Samsung TVs, no Dolby Vision. I don't think it's a big deal. I feel that HDR10 is good enough and Dolby Vision slightly different, but not like night and day. Oh, Dolby Vision looks great, right? If you want Dolby Vision, there's always the Sony A80L for a similar price or the C3, but I don't think the compromises to everything else is worth having Dolby Vision, but only you can make that call. Let's say you are convinced you want the S90C, but you don't quite have the budget for it. Well, consider the Samsung S94BD that's also sold at Best Buy. It is essentially last year's S95B. Name has changed. It's now the S94BD. It is so close to the S90C in performance that they might as well be identical, but it only comes in a 55 and 65-inch size. If you want a 77-inch size, well, it is the S90C or bust as far as I'm concerned. And if you're waiting for my Sony A95L review, it will be up here when I finally get it. In the meantime, enjoy my other OLED TV reviews up here and here. Until next time, stop the FOMO.